Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second week of online instruction. Remember, these videos for my students at Luke, these are not required. These are just optional videos if you guys want to do some more art at home or if you have extra time or are bored. So these are not required assignments and they do not need to be submitted. But if you'd like to show me what you did, you are welcome to take a picture and upload it online in your art at home folder just so I can take a look. So today we're going to be drawing a little elephant. Mine is a baby elephant, and he is playing in a puddle. So he is in his natural habitat, and this elephant is in Africa. So the reason we can note that is because these trees here in the background of our paper, these trees are specific to Africa. They're called acacia trees, and they look a little bit different than a palm tree or a pine tree like a Christmas tree. They're really wide and short, kind of like an umbrella. So that's how we know that this artwork is specific to Africa. We can tell by the trees in the background. So this elephant is in his natural habitat, meaning this is where he lives in nature. He's not in a zoo or in a cage. He is in his natural habitat. So when we're done, you are welcome to color this with whatever materials you have at home, or just keep it a drawing. So that choice is up to you. You can use crayons, colored pencils, markers, whatever you might have. So just for the drawing part, of course, we need a pencil and an eraser. Remember to be drawing lightly until you know it's how you want so that we can erase it. And then optional, if you'd like, I always like to go over my drawing in a Sharpie. That way the lines are nice and bold and dark like you see here, and then it kind of just makes it a little bit easier to color. You can see all your shapes. So I'll set that aside. You don't need to do the marker, that's optional. So to start, you just need a blank piece of paper, and we're going to work with our paper today horizontally, going side to side, not tall up and down like a building, but side to side horizontally. Okay? Now, if you've seen the previous videos, remember this special key phrase, draw light till you got it right. If you push down really hard with your pencil, that line probably won't erase all the way. So if you remember looking at the example, our elephant is in the middle, and he's pretty much the focal point. He's going to take up most of the page, and then we can just add some other details in the background. So find the middle of your paper, and we will start by putting his head right in the middle. Okay, now remember, don't make it too teeny tiny. That's going to be hard to draw in his face details, and it's going to be hard to color later. So I would say a medium-sized circle. And remember, to draw light, we are going to erase a little bit of the line to add his trunk. Okay, so here's about the middle of my paper. If you don't make a perfect circle, that's okay. You can adjust it as you go, or you can do an oval. So I'm just going to do a medium-sized circle here in the middle. Okay. Now we're going to add the trunk here. That's why we're going to need to erase a little bit of our lines. So mine was a little bit crooked. So like I said, as long as you're drawing lightly, you can adjust your lines as you go. Okay. Now right in the middle is where his trunk is. Okay. His trunk is actually his nose. And then underneath is his mouth, so we might not be able to see his mouth. So here towards the bottom, not even up halfway, because his mouth is at the bottom of his face. So I'm going to draw a line that's going to kind of look like a triangle and then come back up to the tip of his trunk, which is where his little nostrils are. Okay, so drawing lightly, I'm going to start wide and then get a little bit smaller. I'm just going to make this come right up like that. Same on the other side, start wide and then get a little thinner, come up like that, and I'm going to draw a circle on the end with a couple little holes for his nostrils. Okay. Now here I can't see through his nostrils, so I'm just going to erase that line that I overlapped. Now here I'm going to add his eyes. I'm going to do some big eyes. That way I have some room to color. Excuse me. So I'm going to do 3 circles. I'm going to do big, medium, and small. And that small one I'm just going to lightly color in. That's his pupil. Okay, same thing on the other side. Big, medium, small, and just color that small one in. That's his pupil. I'm going to give him some little eyebrows. Now, we're going to give him some ears. Now, elephants have really big ears, even as a baby. So I'm going to start at the top of his head and come around to the bottom. Now, this shape can be up to you. It can be just a half circle. It can be a heart shape. Usually they're a little pointy towards the bottom, so I'm going to try to make the top round and then point it a little bit towards the bottom. So I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to go up and around. That's like a half circle. Then I'm going to come down and make a point and bring it back into the side of his head. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I will try to make it symmetrical. It probably won't be perfect, but that's okay. Around, down, triangle, and back in. Okay, now texture is the way something feels, and elephants have pretty rough, patchy skin, so especially over the trunk because they can move it around a lot. I'm just going to add a couple lines, just short lines that go across like this to show some texture in his trunk. Okay, now I'm going to go below his trunk. I'm not going to overlap here. I'm going to go underneath. Right in the middle, I'm going to start adding his feet before we connect his body. Okay, so right in the middle, I'm going to do one on each side. So this is going to kind of look like an M for his front, his hands, I suppose, at the bottom of his arms. So below his trunk, I'm going to go 1, 2, kind of looks like an M. And I'm going to connect across the bottom. Then I'm going to add 3 little bumps for his nails. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Right next to those, I'm going to do some circles. So it's going to look like he's sitting on his bottom and his feet are sticking out towards us. So we're going to be looking at the bottom of his foot. So circle, circle. And again, I'm going to add 3 bumps for his little nails that stick up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have his head, his trunk, his hands, and his feet. So now I can connect his body down to his feet. So I'm going to start right here by the bottom of his head, right by the corner where his neck connects, and just bring that down. Elephants are pretty big and fat, so you can make this line kind of round. Just connect it down to his foot. Same thing over here. Now don't go across his trunk because we can't see through his trunk, right? So I'm going to go down, but stop where you see the trunk, and then connect down on the other side. Okay, so now we have his body. Right now he's floating in space, so we're going to add some details in the background. I'm going to start with the puddle. He's playing in a puddle. Elephants love to take baths and play. That's how they drink. They drink through their little nostril here on their trunk. So starting at the side of him, his body, I'm going to draw an oval that comes around to the side, down in front, and back around to the other side of his body. Okay, so I'll just do a couple markers here so I try to make it even. Okay, so I'm going to go around, down, and back up to his body. So here's a little puddle that he's sitting in. Okay, we can add a couple wavy lines so that we can tell it's water. Okay, we're going to go back up to his head and his ears and just add a couple more texture details. So we can see the inside of his ear, so I'm just going to add a line that goes across the top on each side. And elephants are pretty hairy, so we're going to add just a couple lines like this, some texture to show he has some hairy ears. We're also going to give him a little bit of hair at the top, so you could have a couple options. You could make a curly hair. You could make some spiky hair. I will do some spiky hair just so I have some room to color it in. Oh, that looks like a crown. Well, maybe you want to give him a crown, but I want it to look like hair, so I'm just going to make that a little bit less like a crown. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the background. So we're going to add next a horizon line, and that is a line that separates the sky from the ground. So this horizon line is behind him, off in the distance. So make sure when you draw this, you don't cover up his face. So I'm going to go right about halfway up his ears, okay? I'm going to draw, and it can be pretty flat. It's relatively flat in Africa. There might be some hills, but I'm going to stop when I get to his ear, go behind him to the other ear, and then go across. Okay, so now we have the ground and the sky. So next we're going to add those acacia trees. I'm going to do one on each side just to balance out my paper. So let's just start on this side. We'll do one tree at a time. So from the ground up, we don't want our tree floating in the sky, okay? So trees grow out of the ground, so I'm going to draw 2 lines up on each side. This is the trunk of our tree. Now the next part is going to kind of look like an umbrella. So remember, these trees are wide and short. Okay, so your line shouldn't be going straight up. We're going to kind of make them go more off to the side. So off to one side, off to the other side, kind of looks like a bowl. Okay, there's one branch, so bring that in. I'm going to do another branch here. Remember, keep it short. There's another branch. Go across, add another branch up, and connect that across. Okay, now this tree's in the background. It's not super close, so we don't see a lot of details, but we can make our line for the leaves and the outline of the top a little bit wiggly. That way we do see that the tree has texture of leaves. So I'm just going to make this line a little bit wavy, straight across. Now I'm going to go up and around. It's going to kind of look like an umbrella or maybe even a triangle. Just don't make it too tall, because remember, the acacia trees are wide and short like an umbrella. So I'm just going to go up, back down, around to the side. Now I'm going to add just a couple wavy lines in here so we can see the texture of the trees. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side just to balance our paper out and not have a big empty space. So again, we're going to do one line up, another line up for the trunk, line off to the side, line off to the side, bring that back in for a branch. There's another branch, and I can fit one more branch here. Okay, now bring in that wavy line across and around like an umbrella. Add some lines for texture of the leaves. So now our work is pretty balanced. We don't have one empty space. It's the same on both sides. I do have some empty space here, so I'm just going to add a couple lines to show some texture of either the grass or the straw. It's pretty dry in Africa, so there's not always green grass everywhere. But we can just add a little texture here. I'm going to add some birds in the sky. I'm not going to make it too detailed. They're going to be far away, so I'm just going to do those simple V lines. You can make some big and some small, like they're getting further away. Okay, now here you are welcome to add any other details you want. Maybe you have something else in the sky. Maybe you have another animal or little bugs or beetles on the ground or some rocks. At this point, you can add any other extra details that you want. I'm going to go ahead and set my pencil down. I think I'm ready to trace in my marker. Now I have a fat Sharpie. I also have a thin Sharpie. So if you have those, you can choose which you'd like to use. Getting around the eyes, my fat Sharpie might be too fat, but I'm going to stick with that because that's probably what everyone has. So remember, when we're tracing, take your time, go right over the lines as best you can. At the end, we can go over with an eraser just in case you missed going on top of the line perfectly. That's fine. So I'll go in the same order that we drew. So remember, I erased this line. I don't want to make my line go across his trunk. So taking my time, but don't hold your marker in one spot too long because it will soak up like a sponge. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in a little bit for you guys. his head, stop at his trunk, his little hair at the top. Here's his trunk. I'm going to go around and up, add the nostril. Now these two little circles I'm actually just going to color black because that's the inside of his nostril. His eyebrows, his eyes. Now here I'm going to be really careful not to let my marker bleed too much because I don't want those lines blending together. So a big circle, medium, and that small one I'm going to color in black. That's his pupil. So big, medium, and small. Do his ear, around, down to a point and back in, around, down to a point and back in, inside of his ear line, his ear hairs, these texture lines for his trunk, go down to his feet like the M shape, connect across, 3 little bumps for his nails, circle for the bottom of his foot, and then we did his body connected. I'm going to try to make this line a little bit more even now, like it was on the other side. The puddle comes around and back, some texture lines. Do the horizon line. Stop when you get to his ear and finish going on the other side. My acacia tree that is like an umbrella shape. Now remember, don't color anything in black because you can go back in and add the realistic colors later. The only thing I colored in black was his pupil, that tiniest dot in the middle of his eye. And don't worry too much about your trees. Trees are not a perfect shape. They're organic because they grow in nature, so they're not all the same. Oh, sorry, that's the air conditioner, so it's kind of loud. Hopefully you can still hear me. Okay, I'm done tracing. So once that's dry, just make sure it's dry. Sharpie dries pretty quick. I do see some of my pencil lines, so I'm gonna, with a big eraser, just lightly go over the whole thing to get rid of those extra pencil lines, just to make my artwork as neat and clean as possible. This is what we call thinking about our craftsmanship, trying to make everything as neat as possible and not messy. It takes a little bit of time, but this just shows that we care about our artwork and want it to be as neat as possible. I'm just going to shake this off a little bit. If you still have some, you can brush it off just gently. Okay, and here we have our baby elephant in his natural habitat in Africa. So like I said, you can add any extra details that you want. Maybe there's some other animals in the background. Maybe there's some beetles crawling around. Maybe there are some rocks. At this point, you can color if you wish or keep it as a drawing. I'm going to stop here. You can choose your colors. Obviously, remember, if you are making it realistic, matching real life, your elephant should be gray, maybe a light purple or blue if you can't find a gray. Green leaves, brown trunk. And the sky could be either nice and clear day like a blue sky or a sunset, and grass or a straw color for the ground. So I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed this, and I would love to see some pictures. So if you do this, go ahead and post them. And have a great Monday.